Hey, thanks for joining me in today's video. And what I want to share with you today are 10 signs that you might be living above your means. So stay tuned. All right, so if you are struggling to pay things off, if you are emotionally upset about money, it may be that you are living above your means. And if you're living above your means, it means there's a lot of difficulties financially for you. For example, if you're making even $300,000 a year, but you're spending, let's say, $500,000 a year, you're living above your means. You're living above what's possible for you. And money is finite. Even people like Warren Buffett or Cuban, there's only a certain limit of money. And if they went on a big spending spree, then that could be a huge problem. Look at famous actors like MC Hammer, where, hey, they blew through money so quickly, even though they had a bunch of it, that they went out in debt and had to go bankrupt. So be very careful when it comes to overspending your limits. It's okay. We all have limits. So I want to share with you some signs where you could be spending above your limits and signs that you might be living above your means. So here are a few of them. So number one is you don't have an emergency fund. If you don't have an emergency fund, you probably don't have money on the side or a cushion in case, let's say, you lose your job or you have a problem, you have a car accident, and now you have to go into rehab. That could be an issue. So if you don't have an emergency fund, you could be living above your means. Sign number two could be that you have large credit card debt that's growing. So you might have large credit card debt, but if it's reducing and decreasing, that could be a good thing. But if it's increasing and growing, or it's even the same, that could also be a problem and an issue. Let's look at reason number three. Purchasing big ticket items on emotions. So if you go into the store and you're basically saying, oh my God, look at these pair of shoes, or oh my goodness, look at this new car, I want to get it. If you're buying big ticket items, especially on emotions, on whims, you didn't even think about them before over the last couple of weeks to buy them, then you're probably spending emotionally. And that's not a good, healthy sign, because you're not spending on things that you actually need. You're just spending on things that maybe have a quick fix for you. Let's look at sign number four. That is that other people influence your purchases. If you remember back in high school, maybe you've had these experiences where, hey, that person's got a new dress, you should buy that new dress, or that person's got a new pair of shoes, you should get this type of shoes, or the clothes, or the car. You know, why don't you have that type of car? So if you're starting to get a little bit of these seeds planted in you where other people are influencing your purchase decision, that can be a problem. And if you're living your adult life and it's influencing your decisions, that's a huge issue. So that is sign number four, is that other people influence your purchases. Let's look at sign number five, is that you have a very low credit score. Now, this, again, just like with all these signs, this may or may not apply to you. You might have a very low credit score, but you might be living below your means because maybe you don't have credit cards, or maybe you just don't have good credit. But typically they go hand in hand, right? If you have a low credit score, you probably are living above your means because you're not paying your bills on time. But there are some people that just pay with cash and just don't have a great credit score. So understand that concept as well. Okay, let's look at sign number six, and that is you worry about small expenses. So if you're worried about buying, let's say, the $5 calculator at the dollar store, or you're worried about spending, a couple bucks here or there for simple little life pleasures, then in that case, you could be in a little bit of trouble living above your means because you're tight on your finances. Number seven kind of goes with this as well, and that is money is tight at the end of the month. So if you're, always watching your pennies and very cautious and careful, this could be a good thing. But on the other hand, if you're always tight at the end of the month, you're probably spending somewhere way above your means. And again, I understand some people might be making only $10,000 or $15,000 a year, and in that case, things are very, very tight because your bare necessities are still expensive, or you might be out of work for a while and you've depleted things. So you have to realize where you're at in your personal situation. But if at the end of the month you're tight, and it's month after month, you're always tight, but you're still working, then you might be spending somewhere a little more than you should be. So be very careful with that. Okay, let's look at sign number 8, and that is the car or house that you cannot afford. So you have a car or house you can't afford. I typically see this a lot with cars, like people leasing cars. If you're leasing cars, you want a nice new car every couple of years, it becomes very expensive. Or maybe you're buying a car where it's a $50,000 or $60,000 car, you're making maybe $15,000 a year, so you can't afford that type of car. You have a lifestyle that you just cannot afford. And the same thing happens with houses, where people buy a house that they just cannot afford. They take out a big loan or mortgage, and they just cannot afford it. So be careful in those situations, because they're big purchases. Sign number 9 is you make financial decisions based on future income. So it's kind of like, you just like with a car concept, hey, yeah, I could buy that car because I should be getting a promotion soon. Or I could go ahead and buy that new TV because I'm going to be getting a new bonus, let's say at the end of the year. So again, you're making decisions based on future projected income. Yes, you should project kind of your income and growth, but you're making purchasing decisions that could be costly in this case, and that's what I'm referring to. So be very careful about that. And if you're seeing this, that could be a sign that, hey, you have a little bit of an issue there, living above your means. And then sign number 10 is you're not saving or investing 10% or more. So people that are living paycheck to paycheck usually don't have money to save or invest. So in this case, this is also a sign where you're very tight, you're living probably above your means. And since you're not saving or investing, in that case, that's a little bit of an issue and problem. You're probably living above your means. So be a little bit more careful in that case as well. There are a few bonus signs that I want to share with you, and that is debt has remained the same. Things like credit card debt. So over the last 5 years, if you take a look at it and your debt has been the same, that could be a sign. Be careful. If more than 28% of your income goes to your housing, like your mortgage, that could also be that, hey, you're just overspending on things. They use 28% in the financial world because that's kind of a typical house versus your income, where it makes it more reasonable because you still have living expenses like gas or heat, electric, water, phone bills, internet bills. So you still have those kinds of bills to cover. So that's why they kind of look at your house itself, 28% of that income. Looking at your mortgage is a 30-year fixed and you make minimum payments. So it's not a bad, some people say, oh, don't get a 30-year mortgage. I don't think it's a bad thing to get a 30-year mortgage. But the thing is that if you're making minimum payments and you've been doing that for the last 15 or 20 years, again, probably a sign you're living a little above your means, or you're just not making your payments. So if you have a 30-year mortgage, but you're making like double the payments, it's fine. You'll pay it off earlier. So 15-year is probably better. It'll motivate you to make those payments faster. And you have very little saved for retirement. So again, another big sign and clue. If you got nothing in retirement, you're kind of 60 and you're worried about, hey, what am I going to do for retirement, or what am I going to leave my kids? Then in that case, again, another thing where you're probably living above your means. And again, I'm not saying you can't live a great life or a happy life. It's just that your spending is maybe a little bit beyond what you should have. If you have no savings, no retirement, you're 60, but you're driving a $50,000 BMW, probably a little bit of a wake-up call is needed there. So be careful with where you're at right now. If you're 30 or 40 and you still got 20 years ahead of you or 30 years ahead of you before retirement, then you still have some time to make up that ground. All right, so I want to thank you so much for watching this video and joining me. I hope you got a lot out of it and maybe seeing some signs where, hey, if you're doing some of these things, be careful and be aware that you might be living above your means. And if you're doing that, be cautious that you don't run out of your financial runway or space. You need some of that extra income to curb your lifestyle. So anyways, if you did enjoy this video and you want to see some other great freebies, PDFs, and checklists on personal finances and money and growth, then check out the website here or in the link in the descriptions, as well as subscribing to the channel so you can see other great videos like this one. Thanks again, and I will see you next time.